Welcome back to the Manga Duke. I gotta say, with no exaggeration, this chapter 1082 of One Piece may be the best of the bangers that Oda's recently done. So much about the state of the world, the power of the players, and where things may go are packed into such a tight form. And if you watch this until the end, you'll understand just how impactful everything I'm discussing really could be. Jumping from the start, we begin with a rather intense piece of information. The Vice Admiral T-Bone has been taken out by a citizen who is aiming for a cross-guild bounty. Now, when I saw this, I just knew things have grown to a level that changes the power balance for everything. This is because the Cross Guild, the supergroup formed from Buggy Clown, Crocodile, and Draco Mihawk, has now led to the loss of life of a high-level officer of the Marines. Granted, given the nature of T-Bone, someone who truly cared for the people of the world and was incredibly selfless, it's very possible that he may have allowed himself to be done in. This idea is further supported by the fact that the man who 86'd him was an old man in the starving Pepe Kingdom, definitely the kind of place a self-proclaimed Knight of the People would go to for aid. All of this is information we learned from a conversation between Sengoku and Tsuru, who both lament the effect Cross Guild and its bounties have had on the morale of the Marines. So it seems that, bit by bit, the hold the Marines and the world government has had on the planet is crumbling. The larger figures filling the void created by the loss of trust in the world government are the Revolutionary Army and Cross Guild. At that point, Hina enters and catches the two of them up with the rest of us, informing them of Garp's actions. They're understandably shocked, but I'd say it's too little too late to go stop him. Let's move on from one weakening world power to another that's growing. We jump to Empty Bluffs Island, the home of the big top-like compound of the Cross Guild. It's at this point there's a broadening of the scope of what the organization really is. You see a decrepit old man, shivering, most likely due to the awe and fear of being around the likes of Buggy and a host of unruly pirates. We learn that Cross Guild actually pays the families of those that turn in bounties, possibly changing their lives forever. Yet another way, the criminal underbelly makes an effort to supplant the space occupied by the weakening powers that be. Even more, Buggy offers to protect this old man from the threat of the world government, which could be a great way to build up their power and forces. It turns out Cross Guild even has a lead ship, a frigate-like vessel with Buggy as a figurehead. What's interesting is the design resembles the Going Merry and the Queen Mama Chanter, Big Mom's flagship. It leads me to wonder if Buggy's shipwrights took inspiration from them. They clearly view him as an equal peer to the other emperors of the sea, but were quickly reminded of his real place when Crocodile and Mihawk catch wind of the ship's design as they take him into their meeting room and rough him up for a bit. From here, Oda shows the inner workings of Cross Guild, as the other two-thirds of its leadership discusses the effect they're having on the Navy's morale and what they may need to build, essentially, a nation-state. This harken backs to Crocodile's ambitions in Alabasta and the calculated extremes one would have to embark on nation-building. Mihawk adds their need to build power to support this endeavor, but Buggy gives a bit of pushback to the whole idea, noting that it seems that Mihawk and Crocodile are portraying the real truth and real reason for their being pirates. He mentions the moves that Shanks is making towards the One Piece, and we're thrust 24 years back to the day of Gold D. Rogers' execution. The scene before us is a familiar one, an emotionally sunken Shanks standing before an exasperated Buggy. The latter distraught at the fact the former won't go forward with their ambitions of being king of the pirates like their former captain. So here we see a deeper level to Buggy than we ever have. This whole time, I was under the impression that his disdain for Shanks was merely based out of petty jealousy, but no. Instead, he felt a real sense of betrayal. At one point, he might have actually joined Shanks' crew to help him achieve his dream. Looking back on the absurd series of events that led from his being a low-level East Blue scumbag to one of the most infamous figures in the underworld, he's struck by the fact that he and Shanks are on equal footing, somewhat. This leads him to take what I believe to be the most substantial action in the history of the Cross Guild and may change the story from here on out. Rolling over to a Denden Mushi, despite getting a boot from his partners, he musters up the will to make a series of declarations to his men. He speaks of the screaming urge inside the heart of every pirate on the sea, and tells them now is the time to act. Now is the time to go for the One Piece. And as far as I'm concerned, he's 100% right. With the momentum Cross Guild has, and with the word they're now going for the ultimate treasure, they're bound to A. Collect a lot more bounties, which will then get them B. Even more credibility, and C. Even more recruitment and higher level members. Effectively, they have what's becoming a major martial and economic force. I think it's no exaggeration to say Cross Guild has the potential to outclass every major force, save for the strongest. The reverberations from this may very likely be felt for the rest of the story. I find Mihawk and Crocodile's reaction to all of this so interesting. The easy conclusion to draw is they're being frustrated and annoyed at Buggy's actions, but I think there's something deeper at play. What Mihawk and Crocodile want is fundamentally different from how piracy tends to be defined. They don't possess the same adventurous spirit that the likes of Luffy, Blackbeard, or even Buggy at this point have, and they know that. I truly think they're a little bit ashamed at how much they've strayed. To note, they were also at Roger's execution. They too were inspired by his acts and passing. Perhaps this will was beaten out of them due to their experiences, the fire snuffed by the harsh realities of the Grand Line and the cost of pursuing the One Piece. But now, they also have a chance to achieve their dreams. To conclude our chapter, we get a look at the other actor growing in influence on the world stage. I should add, though important, I feel I have the least to say about it. Within the Kamabaka Kingdom, a few of the vice admirals of the Revolutionary Army see the approach of an unknown ship, one we learned holds Sabo. We also learn a few things. He obviously survived the Lelousia Kingdom's destruction by the world government, and he's accompanied by a number of Lelousians who he also saved. They look to join the army, and to be honest, I think that's how they've been building their numbers. Like Cross Guild, their growth comes from meeting the needs of the people in the absence of the assistance of the world government. I'm curious if they're as effective though. The promise of monetary insurance for one's family, in addition to the protection from the most dominant force in the world, has to be a much stronger motivator than the possibility of overthrowing that system with a slight chance of success. At any rate, we get the final tease of the chapter. Sitting with Iva and Dragon, Sabo promises to finally reveal what happened at the Reverie. At this point, there could be any number of guesses as to what that could be. Honestly, this portion of the story seems to be much more of a loose tie-in to the next chapter as opposed to a real continuation of this story. I know in time we'll see more about this, but the sense of it being drip-fed as opposed to truly being told leaves me a little uninterested. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but oh well. Time will tell if the Cross Guild will be as effective as I think it'll be, and even how effective the Revolutionary Army will be. Given the swings Oda's been giving as of late, anything can happen. For more One Piece chapter reviews, check out the playlist on the screen. Thanks for watching.